and I quote, "I'll be there in a minute. Give me a second."
Time is relative, folks. Time is relative.
Yes. So hey, cheers to everybody in the chat. They're a division rival. I don't care how many wins they get. Screw them.
That wasn't the take I was expecting to hear.
I want to gush over watching live Chris Tanev.
I think that we completely underestimate the skill it takes to play defense.
One highlight or several highlights does not a Calder trophy make.
I'm stepping in here. I'm going to be the crotchety old man here. They need to learn patience. They need to understand the tension, and everything, and the drama.
How dare! Look at this. How is McDavid not getting a penalty?
You guys need to calm down with this, okay? You guys need to calm down with it.
Well, hello. Welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. As you can tell, I'm not Kevin Olnick, but we do have a lot to talk about. And right now I'm joined by Tyler. How you doing, Tyler?
Hey, Sean. Just grinding through extra winter here up in northwestern BC. Been busy in the snow removal business, and also this time of year, hockey refereeing. Playoffs are upon us. Spent a lot of time out of town, a lot of wild nights at the arenas around here, but nice to be able to get on with you here and talk some other hockey. And certainly the Canucks gave us a lot to talk about today.
I mean, the whole NHL, other than the Flames, have given us a lot to talk about because they are the only team that has not made a trade in the 2022-2023 season so far.
Wow.
I'm assuming Brad will find a way to make a trade, but that's just a funny little anecdote right now.
Brad's been a wheeling and dealing executive for as long as we can remember. I'm sure he's got something up his sleeve.
And it's not like he had a quiet off season, so.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, let's get into it. So we got a few moves to talk about. I guess the big one now that is the big talking point would be the Canucks acquiring right-handed shot defenseman Philip Hronek from the Detroit Red Wings, along with a 4th-round pick for the Islanders pick in this upcoming draft, as well as a 2nd-round pick in this upcoming draft. I did not expect this, but I think if you look back and everything that this Canucks management has said, it's part of their plan. But hold on, Tyler. Before we get into that, we have a surprise.
Okay.
Dun
Chris
dun dun.
Whoa. Yes, Chris, you're back.
Chris, a mustacheless Chris too.
Wow.
Because I don't think he's been on the podcast ever since he shaved the furry friend on his upper lip.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that sounds about correct. Yeah, I want to say that started around the new year. Not necessarily New Year's resolution, but it happened around then.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, it's nice to have you back, Chris. You've been off for a little bit. And
a bit of an extended absence, yeah.
And I guess before we get into it again, we've got someone else to join us. Look.
Oh snap.
Oh, you can actually see him.
God.
Wow.
Hey, Dev, can you see Chris's mustache?
Oh, boy.
As much as I want to say yes, absolutely, I know it's not there.
No.
How do you not see it?
Yeah, weird, hey?
It's because he doesn't have his magnifying glass.
I'm just distracted by that beautiful smile of yours.
No, you're gonna make him blush.
That pale skin? I don't know.
Well, how are you, Dev?
I'm fucking exhausted, but I'm good. I
can relate. I just woke up from an accidental nap, so
I did.
I was debating whether or not to nap at 4:00, but it was 4:00, and I'm thinking to myself, I gotta get a good sleep. So, yeah, been grinding. But I'm happy you guys are still on. What time did you guys start?
We just started
5 minutes ago.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Beautiful.
You almost made it on time.
That's great. Yeah, seriously. For once, I was almost not jumping in.
It's a bit different. We had, like 2 boxes and 3 boxes and 4 boxes. It's all unfolding.
And none of Kev, which is
No.
interesting. But
Oh,
hey.
Yeah.
Oh, and I
Well,
bet he's jealous that he's not part of this right now. I'm sure he has lots to say about the trades that have transpired over the last few hours here.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like the NHL at trade deadline, pure chaos over here.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm sure he'd have something to say about Brad Treliving being the only GM not to make a move so far in this season.
Yeah.
It's fucking crazy considering they still have what, a day and a bit left,
Yeah.
right?
And basically 31 teams have made a move.
It just goes to show where the fuck the Calgary Flames are.
No man's land.
It is asinine, and I've had both ends of the discussion. I'm sorry, I'm going to take over a little bit. I've had both ends of the discussion here, where it's been, yes, let's go all in because Daryl Sutter's here to win. We made the deals in the offseason to make that happen, but I think Calgary's been the most underwhelming team within the NHL as far as expectations go, and I'm on the side of things that, you know what, it hasn't worked out. It's probably not going to work out, especially with the East being as dominant as they are and the West being, who the hell knows what the fuck's happening. So why don't you sell Lindholm? Why don't you sell Backlund? Why don't you sell
Toffoli?
Toffoli? Like there's a bunch of guys on this team that could bring back a big haul, but at the same time, it's like, okay, after all of these transactions that have been transpired within the past, 48 hours, it doesn't feel like there's many buyers that would be paid. Left. I mean, Carolina is pretty much the only one, right?
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like Toffoli has Carolina written all over him as far as like a perfect fit for a piece that Calgary could sell.
And talk about Lindholm, who's already been there.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're looking for a center. I wouldn't be surprised if the Islanders were in on something, depending on cap, of course. I don't know. It just feels like this is not the year for the Calgary Flames, and it doesn't mean that they are hinging on this trade deadline. They can obviously make those trades within the offseason and kind of retool as the Caps have done, and I think the Caps have done a very good job, Washington Capitals, with getting Sandin and getting some draft capital for Orlov and Hathaway.
Yeah, but with the Caps, it was both those all the players that they traded are pending UFAs, while the Flames pending UFAs are all the Trevor Lewises of the world.
Yeah, but in like within the past 2 to 3 years at the trade deadline, there's been a lot of, and Toffoli was a part of that, a lot of guys who have term left that have been traded at the trade deadline who've gotten a lot more. And I would argue they've gotten a lot more than they would have in the offseason as far as, making sure that the team who is acquiring these players who have more than 1 year left have that team control, which is huge, especially if you're in that window to win.
Yeah. It'll be interesting. I'm not sure I see the Flames making any moves. I think if they do, it'll be just a tinker here and there. I don't think they're going to make any big ones. I think it's just going to be sort of a stand pat and try again next year. But we'll see. I could be wrong.
You got to think that Markstrom's going to have a bounce back year. You got to think that there's a few players on this team, Huberdeau, Kadri. I think Kadri's played decently enough, but he definitely hasn't been as big of a player as most Flames fans were expecting him to be when he was acquired in the offseason. And this defense is another one. And Zadorov, I think, if you are going to be moving a player, Zadorov would be a candidate, as far as I'm concerned, to go to a contender for, let's see, it'd be amazing to get a fourth out of him, but maybe a fifth or something like that, just to A, get rid of that salary cap, and B, to maybe solidify a contender with that bottom pairing.
Yeah, the thing with Kadri, Dev, it's interesting because he's kind of just back to what he has been, other than last season.
As far as the numbers go, for sure.
Yeah.
My biggest pet peeve with Kadri right now is the fact that when he's back checking, it's either he's not back checking or he does a little flyby, and then he's looking back as the play is developing or the play has already developed and it's been a goal against. That's the biggest thing for me as far as him being a quote unquote two-way player. I haven't really seen that onus to get back into the defensive zone, as I'm sure you all three of you being Canucks fans have seen Miller not really do that for the team.
Are you describing Kadri or JT Miller?
I mean, Miller is probably more of a player. If I'm describing somebody, you would think that would be Miller, but I've just seen little bits and pieces of Kadri's game where I think that he could be picking that up and making a better defensive play overall.
Yeah. But enough of this. Let's get into the fun stuff. Let's get into the all the trades that have happened. Mm-hmm. And I think we were going to start with the Vancouver Canucks and their acquisition of Philip Hronek from the Detroit Red Wings.
I'm super excited to hear what you guys say about this.
Well, let's start with the new guy, or the old new guy, or the guy who's just finally shown up again. Let's start with Chris.
Well, I feel like just like most of the Canucks fan base, everyone had to do a double take when they first read that headline. I was like, we gave up what? Mm-hmm. Because, to send out Horvat for a conditional first, everyone was excited that we were going to have 2 first-round picks for the first time in however many years. But now, apparently we used it to shore up our right-hand D, which definitely is a organizational need. But as far as do we want to give up a – yes, Bowie, we hear you. Did we want to give up that second first-round pick just to be able to – especially in this deep of a first round of a draft, like, do we want to give that up this year just to be able to shore up our right-hand D? So I'm still kind of iffy on what I ultimately think, but I'm willing to see how it plays out.
So for me, obviously when you see first round pick there, it just leaves you feeling this the why, and then you have to start looking at a little bit further though. Canucks are so badly in need, and Sean, you're on this all the time about right shot defensemen. Well, the Canucks so badly in need of a right shot defenseman, and I say this all the time, and it's one of the things that drives me nuts when people start trying to compare trades. You can't compare what one team paid in one transaction with another team with those team circumstances, and then say, "Oh, well, the Canucks got fleeced on that deal." It's a little more complicated than that. The Canucks really needed. Everybody knows their need for defense is dire, and so they took this chance. And the Islanders pick that they got from the Bo Horvat trade is lottery protected. So it's really, yes, it's a first round pick, but it's not like it's a top 5 for sure. Might be superstar player type of pick.
It's likely a bottom half first round.
Yeah. I mean, it's protected top 12, and then even if it is going to be moved for this year's draft, it's going to be a middle of the round pick, right? Just like you said, Chris. So I don't know. It's a very steep price. You can understand why they would do it because of the need for defense, and they just traded Luke Schenn yesterday to the Leafs. But it's troubling. It's troubling because they were just starting to get some buy-in from the fan base for, again, the R words, whether you want to call it rebuilding or retooling or refurbishing or whatever. This move sure makes it look like they want to still try to take some form of a shortcut, and that's concerning. And it also has me wondering, what are their plans for free agency? If the more cap space to free up, the more it makes me wonder what kind of a risky contract they might be bringing on in the summer.
My concern is the direction, and I think there's a difference between a retool and a rebuild. Retool is shorter term, rebuild is longer term. And I was more expecting the Canucks to be a longer term rebuild mentality.
Well, that's very optimistic of you, because like this, you know what I mean? Like, the track record of the organization doesn't suggest you should be.
No, 100%. And like I had faith.
Yeah. And you're not even a fan.
No, I'm not. I whenever I look at a fan base that is going through turmoil, I really hope the best for them. I really do. I'm not in the business of sending anvils to different organizations. And I'm scratching my head here thinking, okay, you just traded for a good solid defenseman who could be a number 2 or most likely a 3-4 defenseman on the Vancouver Canucks. But man, he's 25. Yes, you have team control. Yes, he has arb rights. He's making 4.5 for the next year. And I think that you could have done a lot more within that. I feel like that's a very optimistic view that you and Chris had, as far as, it's lottery protected, but it's still a first round pick.
Yeah.
And
they didn't have a first round pick a couple of drafts prior to this year. So yes, that's, as you can see, why people are frustrated, right?
Totally.
Yeah.
And
it's not just the first, it's the second as well for this year. Yeah. So that also is why there's frustration.
And you can turn it around to say that, there's no 100% bulletproof plan that a first round pick is going to turn out to be an NHLer, and you're getting an NHLer within within getting Hronek. And I love the guy as far as a solid defenseman, two-way defenseman, but man, I feel like it always seems like the Canucks are one step ahead of the way where they should be as far as the plan goes, and making sure that they're going to be successful as a franchise.
Yeah, I think that's where it is right now. Is like, where do the Canucks think their window is? Those hypothetical winning windows. And where the fans
for
think
me, I'm not even sure they're even framing it in that fashion. It sure seems even more short-sighted than that. It's just about how quickly can we get next year looking good.
They've been talking about,
to them, it's the way they operate. It seems like the window is always open.
The way that they've been talking since this management team came in is they've been talking sort of 2 to 3 year, sort of in the R word vernacular retool.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether or not they can turn this around in that time is up in the air, but Hronek fits that.
Yeah.
And a second round pick specifically was not going to fit into that time frame. A mid to late first round pick was probably not going to fit into that time frame either.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think Devin is right. I think they are, whether it was during the Benning era or now this regime, it seems like they're making moves that are sort of a step ahead of where the common thought process would be the moves that they would be making.
Yeah.
And maybe they can turn this around. A lot of people were making this, going back to JT Miller, a lot of people were making comparisons to the JT Miller trade, saying that wasn't a trade you make when you're at that time. But I don't think that the JT Miller trade hampered the Canucks. It was other moves that hampered the Canucks. So I don't think this move will hamper the Canucks in terms of whether or not they're going to be competitive or not in the next 2-3 years. It's everything else that goes on with that. There's still a lot of good moves that they've made leading up to this, and buying low on a few players, which I think has the potential to make them a better team in a shorter order than maybe other people are expecting. But it is a very risky move. I think the price is fine. I think you look at what Chychrun got. You look at all that. You look at the fact that Hronek is a right shot defenseman. You look at where the Canucks are, and unfortunately, they probably had to pay a little bit more because of the situation they were in. But I just look at it and I think it's risky. But I think what will make or break whether or not this team is competitive or not in the next 2 to 3 years is not going to be whether or not they traded the Horvat first round pick or not. I think it'll be everything else.
The argument that I got to put in there though is that could you have waited and gotten something better, right?
I don't know. That's such an interesting hypothetical question, Dev. I don't know. I just every time I've looked out there on defensemen that could be available for the Canucks, no one popped out to me that would be available. And what's funny is I always kept looking back at Hronek, going, does he fit in what Detroit's trying to do? Like he's 25, and they've got Lucas Raymond, they've got Moritz Seider coming up, but they also have got Larkin and all that. So I was never sure, but I don't know. Like he's not someone who's going to be your flashy defenseman who's going to put up 50, 60 points plus, but the Canucks already have that in Hughes. And this could be what could be interesting is this could be his Devon Taves. And if that's it, then this trade could be a big win for the Canucks. Now that's a big if. And I'm not saying he will. I'm just saying that I think that's what they're looking at here. They're looking at someone who can be a sort of because he is more of a steadying two-way defenseman. He's not going to be a Luke Shen who's going to just be a rock solid defenseman, but he's also going to be willing to step back and let Hughes run the offensive side of the game. So I see the upside, but I can also see why people are upset and why it's risky.
Overall, he's a good acquisition. It's just whether it was worth that price.
And the timing of getting him too, right? Or getting a player of that ilk.
Those are different things, right? Like Sean seems to think the price is fair, and I'm kind of there as well with that. But yeah, the timing again in the competitive cycle. I mean, you can't find a fan on Canucks Twitter right now that isn't in the camp of they're supposed to be rebuilding. They can't be getting rid of first-round draft picks yet. Clearly, the organization feels something different, and we always have to qualify this. As much as we like to think we're smart, and we're pretty smart, but the people that are actually at the controls usually have a little more knowledge than we do. And more, we don't know, what's in their minds as far as the whole picture and plan that they have here between now and the trade deadline on Friday. But God, you'd hope there's some more moves coming to reacquire some form of draft capital, because this is it feels like a gut punch to a lot of people today, and even for the most optimistic fan, it's hard not to feel that way a little bit.
Well, that's a very optimistic view you have, considering the track record of the management within the past few years.
Well, yeah, I'd call it ownership. I mean, that's the thing.
Whoa. Yeah. You can say it's owner, like the whole mandate from ownership and all that, but this is a different management group that took over last season.
It is, but my whole point is that this is a questionable move within the first full year of this management group, essentially, or just under the first year of this management group. So it's hard to see the direction and the not questioning whether or not it's a correct move, right?
Yeah. I think it's easy to see the direction. It's also easy to question that direction.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're a lot more decisive now. I think about stripping down the old core and the old culture and trying something different. But still, a proper rebuild takes time. Even they say that, and yet they don't want to go there. It seems like, right?
And that's my point. Is that in my mind, I have the direction is a rebuild, a retool, the R words, but. To me, a retool is what the Capitals are doing. It seems like it's what the Penguins seem to be doing as well, and what I think the Flames should be doing at this point. But I think a rebuild for the Vancouver Canucks is probably the best route to go, which is a longer term look. And this move does not feel like a long-term look.
No, this move definitely is a retool move. This move's definitely something that they probably sold a plan to ownership, and they're trying to fulfill that plan, which is be competitive in 2 to 3 years.
And that's my whole point. Is that's why I'm questioning it. I feel like
they want to be competitive in 1 to 2 years, and that's really the problem. Is that's we're spinning our wheels doing that.
I kind of see it in the same way, but different, as like when they picked up Mikheyev last offseason. Like, fans kind of initially questioned it, being like, wait, what? Like, I thought the game plan was different, where this seems to like project something else. But I think it's more just them trying to bring in guys that they have more faith in, that can buy into what they're trying to build, as opposed to we're trying to be competitive as soon as possible. Like, I still see it as more of a medium term plan, as opposed to like we need to be good for next season's playoffs. Like, I don't see this as that. I see this as moving towards like 2 to 3 seasons away from being competitively good, but with the guys that they want to bring in.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there, Chris. I think that's how I view it as well. I think that's what they're doing here. You look at some of the acquisitions they've made too, and I think they think they got a first round pick for absolutely nothing in Vitaly Kravtsov, which was
to quote Bachelor, in Soviet Russia, or in Soviet Vancouver, Russians play you, or however you worded that tweet.
And that's still an optimistic view, because he hasn't really proven himself within this organization. And that's as far as management goes, that's the type of moves that they wanted to make, is Bolivier, a Kravtsov, the players who have not lived up to their standards in the early 20s, essentially, and this is verbatim from management. And as far as Bolivier goes, God, he's a rocket out of fucking hell right now, trying to prove himself, I feel like, and he's been phenomenal with Pedersen on that top line. So I mean, it's a great move for sure as far as Kravtsov goes, but it's saying that he's a first round pick, sure, but same with Puljujarvi.
I know. I'm just trying to I wouldn't consider them that. I'm just saying that maybe they think that, because I think type deal. And I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what this offseason is going to be, and the leading up until Friday at noon, 10 o'clock
noon Pacific, 3 Eastern. 1 month.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, realistically, we're throwing shit onto the Canucks when they have 6 picks within the first 4 rounds, which is still ideal. Right. And they still have the draft capital there, which is fine. It's just, for me, it's all about the timing of this, but time will tell.
I mean, I think there's probably some people in Canuck fandom that are waiting for the general manager to come out and utter the famous, was it Cliff Fletcher that said draft schmaft? I mean, it's we're almost there, aren't we? Like the draft, crapshoot, the hell with the draft. Let's get some more known quantities. Well, they're only like marginally more known quantities.
Yeah. Kravtsov, I think, is a really good, smart pickup for the price specifically. Giving up, what was it, a 7th round pick in
Lockwood? I kind of see a lot of flashes of the Ehrhoff fleecing of San Jose. Not
it could be
to the same degree, but I see kind of a similar sort of taking advantage of another team trying to open up cap space and getting a decently good player at a rock bottom price.
Yeah. So I think that's a good move. Getting a 3rd for Luke Schenn, I think, is a good move. And then just before we move on from the Canucks, because there's a lot to talk about, one thing I want to say about them is, whatever you hear about what they're working on, look elsewhere. Because I don't think we've seen a trade come out from this management team where you were expecting it at that time. The only two I would say that we knew that they were interested in the players were Kravtsov and Bear, but those trades came at a time where we did not think that they were going to get them.
Yeah, you knew they had interest in the player, but as far as the actual transaction itself, there wasn't any leaks prior, for sure.
Because you look at the Horvat trade, I don't think anyone had the Islanders in there. You look at the Hronek pickup, that came out of nowhere. Everyone was focused on what the potential move with Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
And then
everyone was trying to be like, is it Besser or is it Miller?
Yeah. So I look at that and I just go, I think there's a lot of smoke screen going on within this management team trying to keep it quiet and tight what they're actually working on. So I don't think anytime you see an insider say that the Canucks are working on something with a specific team, look elsewhere.
Yeah, that's all the agent planting.
I think it's both. I don't think you can say that's definitive that within that, because I do believe that there still is a potential that most likely Besser could get traded within this before this trade deadline, and that's been out there for a long time, right?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting. I think I'm still not sold on him getting traded at before the deadline. I think that'll be a summer trade. But
especially now that Pittsburgh made their move for Granlund, I feel like whatever was a potential with the Canucks probably has passed at this point. But if we are moving on from the Canucks, I do want to make one last somewhat joking comment of, is Dan Milstein an assistant GM now?
He's got what, I think
six or seven clients in the team.
It's a valuable point. Yeah.
It's not. We are not all Canucks. We are all Gold Star.
Yeah.
Well, let's go to the Leafs, because
the Eastern
Kyle
Arms
Dubas is all in, and he's using every phone that he can grab. Especially yesterday, it was like what was it? Just rapid fire. Leafs have made this trade, this trade, this trade, this trade, this trade, this trade.
Yeah. How many arms? How many phones?
Yeah. So Dev, you're a resident Leafs fan. Are you excited to lose to Tampa in the first round again?
You know what? I'm not even saying a goddamn thing to that. First of all, I am happy with the Jake McCabe. I'm happy with the Sam Lafferty trade. I think that was really good. You get two players within who have 2 years left each.
Not
rentals. And I'm happy that he's going all in on this. I mean, he kind of had to after you had Boston go all in with Orlov and Hathaway, and then you have Rangers doing the same thing. Tampa, and
Tampa's spending everything on the nice third line player.
I commend him for doing what he's doing. I feel like it might be a potential year too late to do it, but at the same time, you walk away from Rasmus Sandin for a first round pick in Gustafsson. I really like that trade. You get I think he should be that number one power play guy, Gustafsson, on the Maple Leafs, and he getting that first round pick as well. I think that's brilliance. Sandini's been middling second liner, third liner, injured, so he's not really within your time to win as well right now. Getting some draft capital for Pierre Engvall as well, third round pick from the Islanders, fantastic, and then getting Luke Schenn as well. Brian Burke has always talked about how when you go into the playoffs, you want to make sure that you have depth on defense, and now the first time in I don't know fucking how long, maybe first time ever, you can say that the Leafs have depth on defense, and just in case somebody gets injured, you're able to bolster that, which is amazing. So I'm very, very happy to see it, but it does scare me that you have that arms race going on within the Eastern Conference. It's scary to be a Leafs fan, but you know what? Good on Dubas for jumping in with both feet.
Yeah, outside of maybe picking up a goaltender, what hasn't he done? Like, what else could he do?
Yeah, and that's obviously still going to be a concern that's not insignificant for the Leafs, but good for the Leafs. I mean, this is how they should be behaving in their current circumstances. They are a team that's closer to going for it than the other end of the spectrum, and they're the Leafs. Like be aggressive. That's how it always has been. I'm not going to take the Sean route and predict a first round loss, because as a Canuck fan, we're not really in strong position to fire barbs at other fan bases, I think. And I've said this before, and I'm going to stick with it. Really, the Leafs just need that breakthrough the first round, and then I think they got a good shot at really going far. Yes, there is Boston in the next round, presumably, assuming they don't have a screw up in the first round. But they just need to really it's just that mental hurdle. It seems like that is the biggest obstacle, as opposed to anything roster wise. They can get over that hump and gain some momentum and some belief. Who knows where that could take the team?
Yeah, that's the cruel irony, because should they slay their dragon, there's another dragon in waiting.
Yeah, exactly.
It's very true. Listen, Chris, we're going to take this game by game and day by day. Okay, the cliches and all the bullshit, but you got to look at how well they did last year in the playoffs. Yeah, they lost, but they put up a good fight. It went 7 games, and yeah, it wasn't the outcome that they wanted to, but it's Sean said this multiple times. You need to make sure that you have players that have gone through that turmoil and felt that loss to understand, to come out and be like, you know what, we've been here before. It's game 6, game 7. Fuck you. I don't want to go and play golf earlier this year. I actually want to do a run and prove everybody else wrong, just like Nazem Kadri said when he won the cup.
Yeah, no, that was more of just a little friendly barb. I'm honestly looking forward to that series so much, because the stories, because it's almost locked in at this point. What
it is,
right?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. But the stories coming out of that series, the fact that they're facing Tampa again, the team that's been to the Stanley Cup Finals 3 years in a row, 2 times winning it, and then. And it feels like we look back at the Canucks in 2011 with, like, had they not won that first round series against Chicago, they would have blown it up. I think we're at the precipice here with the Leafs as well. It's win or go home, win or blow up the team, because Kyle Dubas doesn't have a contract after this year, and like, you just have to find they've got a decent amount of UFAs coming off. Coming off the books this year. There's going to be big moves if they don't at least win a round. If not, like, I think they. Do you think that's the one thing again, is does Kyle Dubas survive this year if they don't get to at least the conference finals?
In my opinion, I feel like all the moves he's made this deadline, especially with like what he was saying prior to all these moves, like, he made it sound like we're not going to give up picks, and like basically he's done the complete opposite of that. But I think the reason why is because he's covering his ass that should it blow up in his face and they don't make it out of the first round, he can legitimately get an insurance policy and say, like, I did everything I fucking could and they still couldn't do it, so it's not on me.
Well, and again, it's one of those things too, when he says we're not going to do this or not going to do that. Well, that was the plan at that time that he said that. As things evolve here with teams making moves, that can change. Just like, quick aside, the whole narrative out there that Kyle needs a playoff series win or he's done. I'm not sure I believe that entirely. Because it's hard to really get a sense of where the higher levels of MLSE and the people above Brendan Shanahan feel about things. And Brendan's very, very loyal to Kyle. To me, it would have to be a really, like, fall flat on their face to, like, get swept, kind of really, really poor showing for that to happen. I think even if they were not to advance past the first round, I'm not sure that's automatic. It
agree.
depends on kind of how it looks. And Devin talked about last year where, it wasn't like the year before where it was collapsing against Montreal. It was more of a harder fought battle and a better effort all around against Tampa Bay, although still coming up short. So we'll see. I think that whole idea that Kyle must win or else is more of a media narrative than a real thing within the Maple Leafs organization.
100% agree with you there, Tyler. His core and the way that he is believed within his system. They both, like, you have Austin Matthews still 1 more year left. You have Nylander 1 more year left. I have a hard time thinking that they're going to be like, okay, like Tyler said, if it's going to be flat on your face, yeah, there might be a change of the guard up there. But if they do well, depending on how they come out of the gates next year, I think that he has 1 more year left, and it just doesn't make too much sense to get a new GM in there to start negotiating with Austin Matthews on July 1 and negotiating with William Nylander on July 1. Those guys love Dubas as far as we know, and yeah, it just if everything lines up the way that it should, he'll stay for another year. If not, he'll start off the year as the GM of the Toronto Maple Leafs.
Okay, and then as Devin talked about it a little bit during this, so. The rest of the East is loading up. You got New Jersey adding Timo Meier.
Love that one. Holy fuck. Oh, my God. New Jersey is an underdog, but they need to be a top dog as far as I'm concerned, as far as talking about it, because they have the goaltending. Vitek Vanacek is phenomenal. They have the defensive core led by Dougie Hamilton, Ryan Graves, and you have like an amazing top 6. You really do. Nico Hischier is underrated. Putting Meier on that on that top line, either with Hughes or spreading down that depth of with Hischier. Oh my God, guys! It like that. I have a hard time with this whole narrative that we want to have back to the 1-8 playoff matchup. Either way you do that or you do it this way, you're going to have fucking great matchups in the first or in the second round. It doesn't matter when they're going to meet each other. Who the fuck cares?
It's just crazy because like the top 5 teams in the East, like only 2 of them are going to make it out of that first round.
May the best one win. You're going to have to run through a certain team at some point. Look at Toronto, Tampa Bay, Boston most likely. And then they're in the Eastern Conference Final. It doesn't matter. If you're good enough, you're going to make it.
And honestly, like from a fan perspective, the best round to watch and the best hockey is the first round. So if you're getting top-notch matchups in the first round when everyone's healthy or as healthy as they can be.
Yep.
And like, honestly, if we get Tampa, Toronto as one matchup, and then we get New Jersey versus the Rangers as another matchup.
And yeah,
they better be on opposite days because I want to watch all of that.
Yeah,
either that or back to back, but never overlapping.
Except they're both East, so it's not going to work that way. But yes, it's just give me that, just fire hose all that good hockey in my face. Like, come on, that's be so good. Because like, you've got the Devils adding Meier. You've got Dawson Mercer, who's an underrated player, who's just about to hit 20 goals. You've got Dougie Hamilton, Jesper Bratt's really good, Nico Hischier, Jack Hughes down the middle. Ryan Graves is a beast on that blue line. Like, and then who are they going up against? They're going against the Rangers, who just that forward group is insane now that they've added Patrick Kane, Tarasenko, and you've got Shesterkin in net. You've got Adam Fox on the blue line, Keandre Miller on the blue line.
Probably one of the most underrated
people over.
Yeah, and one of the most underrated third lines with Hedel, Lafreniere, and Kakko.
The kid line.
The kid line. Yep.
So it's
you got Keandre Miller spitting in people's faces. It's phenomenal. It's good stuff. I'm here for it.
Also, the Devils are Swissing it up. They have what 3 out of like the 5 main Swiss NHLers.
Yeah.
I think the only ones that they don't have is Yossi and Fiala.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
So, no,
just a little interesting tidbit that
I'm very impressed with that tidbit. You really, really did your homework with that one.
I saw it on Twitter. I can't remember who tweeted
homework.
It.
That's still doing homework.
I stumbled across it though. It's not like I seeked it out, but I'll take the compliment.
I gave you the chance.
I'm unworthy.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you got Ottawa loading up with adding Chychrun.
Oh my
yeah,
God.
I think that kind of came. Well, at least I thought it came out of nowhere because like I'd heard so many rumors of all these other teams that are potentially in on Chychrun, and then out of seemingly nowhere, Ottawa ends up winning that sweepstakes.
They've been chasing him basically all season. It's just whether or not the Arizona's price would match what Ottawa was willing to pay. And essentially, from what I've gathered from Twitter and everything, is that the reason they went with Ottawa is because Ottawa was going to take they were willing to just give up futures, and not give them back a contract or anything like that.
Yeah, bad money. Yeah,
because Arizona, they can't take on bad contracts or anything. No.
All of our retirement contracts are taken up. Sorry.
No, they already did that with the Shea Weber trade.
Yeah, I was going to say we already picked up Shea Weber earlier this week.
I love Ottawa. And this is coming from a Leafs fan. I love how they are made. Then talk about probably my favorite captain on the planet Earth right now is Brady Tkachuk. How could you not want to run through a goddamn wall through that guy? Yeah, with that man.
The B stands for better.
I agree with you. He's phenomenal. He is so good. You have Giroux being a great veteran on that lineup. Adding Chychrun is nasty as fuck. He will be on that top power play unit. You'll push down Thomas Chabot, give him less minutes, and oh my God, it's just if they can find some goaltending. Their new young goaltender, Matt Sogard. If you look at his numbers, it's phenomenal. He has had a great start to his NHL career, and if they could ride him through the playoffs, fucking do it. He's a beast. He is like 6'6" or 6'8" or something like that. It's ridiculous how tall. 6'7". There you go.
And sub 200 pounds. He's
right in between there. He's a beanpole, but that's exactly what you want. And if they got Chychrun earlier in the year, they would be within that. Not saying they're not within the playoff race; they definitely are. But I think they'd be solidify themselves a little bit more, or push themselves into that wild card spot as a rubber stamp. But man, I love that team.
I mean, if you saw that post game quote from Brassard, Pierre got him the guy that they needed, or that he thought that they deserved with their performance the past 20 or so games to show that they need that push to get into the playoffs.
Yep. And Sean and I have been fucking huge proponents of Chabot, and now you got a formidable number 2 or second liner that can help spread out those minutes. So it just makes me love the Ottawa Senators more than I already have as far as a hockey fan goes. But from a Toronto fan, I really don't like it.
I mean, I feel a little bit.
That's fine.
I feel a little bit validated in the sense that I said that the Sens were kind of my dark horse team at the start of the season, as far as liking how they were assembling their roster and whatnot. Took a little bit longer for them to find their wheels, if you will, but they're starting to show that promise now.
And this is all without Josh Norris down the middle too. Imagine having him.
And then the key about the Chychrun trade is it's not just for this year.
Yep.
They're building. I even if they don't make the playoffs this year, they're building, and they're going to be a team that's going to be, the top 3 in the Atlantic is a bit of are all really good teams, and you're going to throw in Ottawa and let alone Buffalo next year.
Oh, fuck.
Buffalo's a team to watch right now too, in terms of what do they try and do anything more? They made the trade for Riley Stillman from the Canucks, adding some depth there on the blue line. But do they try and do anything for this year, or do they just stay the course and maybe make a big splash in the offseason and build from there?
I feel like that's probably the more likely route for Buffalo, is maybe kind of give up on this season, but with the promise of next season being like a bursting through the doors sort of start to the next season.
Because they got Alex Tuch is out for a little bit here. But you've got Tage Thompson having one hell of a season. Darlene's looking like the player he did.
They always thought he would be
the number 1 overall pick. Dylan Cozens is looking like the player that they wanted to when they drafted him. And they still got Jack Quinn coming up. Owen Power still just getting his feet wet in the NHL. John Jason Peterka, Peyton Krebs, Jack Quinn. They got a lot of young players that if they can find that right mix and add to that and get the blue line sorted out and a long-term fix in net, because if Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is that's great, but Craig Anderson is an ageless wonder, but
but is a limited commodity.
Yeah.
Listen, they got next year they have just over 23 million in cap space. They got Kyle Okposo off the books. You got to expect that he won't be back. If he's going to be back, it's going to be a very team friendly deal. Really much outside of that, the world is your oyster essentially. As far as I'm concerned, you can go and pick up or trade for someone who would be able to help them push over that hump. And who knows, that could be a number 1 goalie or bolster that top 6 or the top 4D. It's a scary mix what they have going on there. And that's the whole thing with this as well, is that they took their time with Jack Eichel to make sure that they would get a good return, right? And to Alex Tuch, he will be the next captain of that team. Okposo, I think he'll go off in the sunset, but talk about someone who loves to be there because he's from there. And it just kind of goes to show that patience can go a long way.
And Krebs was part of that deal too, right? I feel like that's an underrated part of that pickup.
He was the guy that they targeted, and when everyone looked at that deal and they're like, okay, why did they go with this deal? It was a big part of that was Peyton Krebs. But, and then the other big one, we talked about Chychrun. The Oilers were in on him, but they ended up getting Matthias Ekholm from the Predators, which I think is a better fit for them, because I don't think they necessarily needed Chychrun, who's just going to be more of a offensive wild card for them. Because as good as Chychrun is offensively, defensively, he's not as solid as what the Oilers would need. And Ekholm's puck moving is underrated, in my opinion.
I feel like, out of every defenseman that we had heard rumors that the Oilers were in on, whether it was Carlson or Gavrikov or you name it, I feel like as far as overall best fit for what they're going to need to get over the hump in the playoffs, I feel, he is who's going to help them the most.
I think the Oilers fans are mostly upset about how, or the what they gave up for him. A first and a fourth, it can be a lot, but once again, it's like, what are you going to do? Well, you're going to lose McDavid and Draisaitl if you don't fucking do something? How can Holland look McDavid in the eye if at the end of the year, if they don't win the cup, and say, what the fuck did you do at the deadline? You did nothing? Okay, well, great. And we've been talking about this for years, is when is the breaking point for Connor McDavid wanting out of there? You want to make sure that you're bolstering that lineup. Stuart Skinner is a formidable goalie who will be able to, I think that he's their number 1A over Jack Campbell, because Campbell's been fucking inconsistent. Surprise.
Soupy's being soupy.
Very soupy. And you get a fucking good, solid top 4 defenseman who's able to be a defenseman. Defense first, for fuck's sakes. Like that's the whole point of it. And people are upset that they're losing Tyson Barrie. I don't see the problem here. I think that
I think your power play is going to survive.
Well, even then though, like you still have your potential new number 1 in Evan Bouchard, who's been phenomenal as far as good as he can be. So, great move by Holland. Great move.
Yeah, and they're going to be looking at a tough first round matchup here too, whether it's LA or if they're a wild card, they're going to be playing either probably Vegas or Dallas. So they're going to have to talk about a team that's just like the Leafs that are going to have to slay some dragons here. Yeah, they got to they need to start having sustained runs, because they haven't really done that before.
Yep.
And as far as Edmonton's trade partner, I know it's kind of not exactly trade related, but Barry Trotz and Poyle. Holy shit, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah. Now just one thing. Trotz has continued to maintain a residence in Nashville, has he not, throughout his whole
I think
time?
he went back and bought a new place.
Yeah, he bought a place in the time that he was unemployed. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess now that we've seen it, we shouldn't be too surprised, I suppose, that he would take over for Poyle in a more managerial capacity. But
yeah, sorry, Winnipeggers, wasn't ever going to happen.
No, that was that was just good leverage for him.
But David Poyle, wow, talk about in an industry and a career. You've chosen a career that has so much like instability, to literally have basically worked for 3 organizations over 40 years. That's crazy, because he worked for the Atlanta, then turned into Calgary Flames, then went to Washington, then went to Nashville.
And was in Nashville for 26 straight seasons in the same position. Unheard of.
Yeah, and you could probably say maybe that'll never ever be accomplished by an executive in pro sports going forward.
Not with how professional sports is executed now. Nope.
Yeah, I don't.
It's a thing of the past.
Yeah. We haven't brought up Jonathan Quick. For me, I've got to bring up Jonathan Quick. It's not been quite 24 hours since that news came out, but that's still hard to digest, the fact that he's not going to be playing his entire career with LA. It was one of those guys like, Patrick Kane, it's going to be odd to see that one too, right? But and I know that it's such a rarity now to have players stay with one franchise, but I never had anywhere in my imagination Jonathan Quick playing in another unit.
But at least Patty Kane got what he wanted.
Yes.
Well, to a certain degree, I think Kane probably expected that he was going to retire a Blackhawk, but once he realized how the situation was going to play out, he's like, okay, well, if I'm leaving, I want to go to New York, and he got to go to New York.
Yeah.
Quick, on the other hand, is like, you sent me to Ohio?
Yeah, and Frank Saravelli was all over that reporting last night and the reaction to it, and needless to say, Jonathan Quick's not happy about the move. I mean, as a petty fan of the Canucks, my sympathies are not much for Jonathan Quick, but that's Nothing lasts forever, boy. I just wanted to just sort of express myself a little bit in that regard, like how stunning that is. You know, it's hard to digest that, and I don't know how you guys feel about it.
Well, it was Kevin in our chat said he wasn't sure why Columbus would want him. I don't know if they quote unquote wanted him. I think it was the price to pay to get that first round pick in that deal. Because
they probably view it more as like the bad contract that they're willing to take on sort of situation.
Yeah, LA's cap situation isn't the best. They say their current projected cap space is about 1.4 million. So and
that's after burying Pettersson and then trading away Quick.
Yes. So if they were gonna, I wasn't sure if they had, I'm looking at their roster. I'm not sure there's another contract that they would have been willing to give up to make that work cap wise. And are you willing to have, because Phoenix Copley's basically took over that job from Jonathan Quick, and are you really willing to basically pay Peterson and Quick not to play, at least this season? Because Peterson's a $5 million goalie. Quick is around there as well.
5.5.
Always forget that Columbus is spent close to the cap when it's actually over the cap this year. Yeah, he's a 5.8 on the cap. So it's just they needed to make the money. They need to make the money work, let alone whatever the real money is. So I think that's all that was. And Kekalainen was probably just like, well, if you're going to give me a first, I'll do it. So
yeah, and
whether or not he's able to flip him elsewhere remains to be seen. There was rumors that potentially Vegas was going to might do it, but their cap situation is just as complex and crazy as well. So whether or not they can make that work in the next couple days is still definitely in the air.
I also had heard a joke take of, well, if Dubas wants to go for a goalie, there's your goalie.
A lot of the moves that Dubas made, a lot of the moves that Dubas made yesterday were to open up enough cap space to allow for them to activate Matt Murray off the LTIR before the season's up. And he's basically their
deadline acquisition.
Deadline acquisition and net. Veteran with cup experience. If they didn't have Matt Murray, I'd actually wouldn't be surprised if they explored that option. But with Matt Murray there and the 5.8 cap that Quick has, that's going to be tough to. That I thought that basically eliminated the Leafs out of there. Vegas and Ottawa were the only two that really made, like, I could maybe see them trying to do, but I think, and Devin was talking about Sogard, so I think Ottawa's probably going to run with Sogard and Talbot and see what happens and go from there going into the off season. And Vegas, I think it all comes down to how healthy Logan Thompson will be.
Yeah, and whether you have long-term faith that he's their guy moving forward. Yeah.
God, I hope so, because that's such a great story. Like, he came from U Sports and university hockey up here in Canada. Like, it's just to the NHL. It's fantastic. Is there any other trades that we have missed?
We'll go through the old Trade Center board here real quickly.
Also, how do we feel about all the guys that are going to have to be on TV on Friday filling airtime for who?
Well, are they? I thought I saw somewhere that they're actually going to shorten up their plans. Is that? Am I wrong with that, or I mean, they don't need all day coverage. They just need a few hours probably now.
Yeah. But yeah, as every trade kept on rolling in these past 48, 72 hours, I'm like, what, does no one think of James Duthie?
I think all it's more of like deadline week now. Like it used to be like you'd have a couple trades before like the leading into it, and then everything would happen on the day. But now it's basically,
Now it's trade deadline month.
Week. Yeah.
Well, and like we
Horvat
said,
kicked it off, and it's been started as a trickle, but this week has been definitely an explosion.
And a fire hose.
I guess just from a Canucks perspective, and it does feel like a long time ago now, Monday, when it comes to this point of the year. But the basically waving the white flag on the Riley Stillman acquisition earlier in the season, where it's around the start of the season, him getting dealt to the Sabres for Josh Bloom. So, and then you factor that in with the Luke Schenn move, and then today's move to bring a defenseman in with Hronek. I mean, yes, it's a steep price to pay for a right shot defenseman, but the organization has very little defense, and it's the most glaring need. So, just wanted to mention that.
And if you're going to look at the big picture, like to go from Dickinson to Hronek, I call that an improvement. It's just whether the price that they paid to get there was worth it.
Yeah, well, time will tell on that, I guess. But
yes, Stillman definitely wasn't a good fit here, and I feel like he could be better set up for success in Buffalo, and I think that's part of the reason why they made that trade.
Mm-hmm. And that also clears off 1.35 on the cap, not only for the rest of this season but next as well.
Yeah.
So they basically got rid of all of the Dickinson contract going into next season. And Josh Bloom's a former third-round pick who looks like he's got a bit of a probably third line upside if everything goes right.
And a Cam Robinson stamp of approval.
Yeah. So,
and also just a quick tip of the cap to the Jets for picking up Nino Niederreiter. I always have trouble with that name. Nino Niederreiter for a second round pick in next year's draft. That's a pretty good move for Winnipeg with where they're at.
That's a player I forgot about.
That's a typical Winnipeg move. I think it's you're getting player with a little bit extra term because no one signs in Winnipeg.
Yeah, and that's a real shame. I've never been to Winnipeg in the winter time. I've been there in the summer once though, and it gets a bad rap. Winnipeg deserves better than that, but it is what it is.
But let's be honest, with NHLers, you don't attract them there; you trap them there.
Yeah, you have to kind of force it. Yeah.
And then Jesse Puljujarvi escaped from Edmonton.
Bye, Bison King.
Carolina.
I watched quite a few Oilers games because one of my best friends is an Oilers fan. And I always just marveled about there was nobody having more fun, it seemed like, in an Oilers uniform than Jesse Puljujarvi. So I'll miss that goofy face and the big man out there when he scores. But it just for both the Oilers and for him, it was time to move on from that.
Well, it did help them make that Ekholm trade as well.
Yeah.
So
totally. And I think you got to take a look at also potential moving Tyler Bertuzzi with the Hronek trade. I think you look at Steve Yzerman and the Red Wings. They're not in on this year, and I think rightfully so. It's too much of a hill to climb for them to get back into it. The two losses to Ottawa, I kind of think solidified that as well. So, and there's been a lot of teams sniffing around Tyler Bertuzzi, and Jeff Merrick has been talking about him going to Tampa Bay somehow. I don't know how the fuck they do that, but somehow that would be a complete gut punch to that Atlantic Division and the Eastern Conference if he does go to a contender within there. I just think that he's too good of a player not to be moved at this deadline.
Yeah, I heard Dallas as well. That's a team that I don't think that we've seen their big move yet either. So.
Yeah, it solidified the top six, where it's been kind of questionable for Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin. kind of those contracts are goddamn garbage. But yeah, you got to expect that Dallas does make a move considering the state of the West right now. And granted, they haven't been doing too hot as of within their past 15 games, but yeah, they're too good not to, especially with Jake Ottinger and Robertson on the top end there. It's one of those ones where you want to make a move, but you don't want to really sell the futures for this entire year. But you do have to do something.
They were in on Meyer, but didn't quite get it done. They made that move for Evgeny Dadonov, trading Gurianov for him, and then he scored in his first game with the Stars in the losing cause after the very prolonged end of game goal review.
Oh,
get rid of them, please.
Against the AHL Canucks.
Yeah, that almost needs its own episode. Trying to figure out why NHL video reviews take so long.
I do want to shout out the in-game DJ down in Dallas who put on Freebird just to make sure he did not have to change the song again.
Yeah. Although, did you notice that they also played Enya as well? And then the panel just kept on going on about it after the game too. That was hilarious.
And then speaking of someone who's just got an infectious smile and an infectious energy, that's our boy Kuzmenko.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. We that we do look forward to seeing more of down the road.
Yeah. And for those of you who get the reference, he is our Danny Roja.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I think we've basically covered all the big moves.
Yeah, now we'll just hope that this podcast isn't dated in about 10 minutes from now.
It's always going to be pretty instantly dated.
We're usually pretty good for a day or two, maybe, but that's the time of year we're in here. It's everything's happening fast.
Although I guess if we're talking about Dallas last, like if Dadonov is their only move, is that disappointing for the Stars, especially considering how every other team that seems to be a decently strong contender has loaded up? Like, I feel like that's probably not enough for Dallas, despite where they are in the standings.
Yeah, probably, but there's still, I think, James Van Riemsdyk's out there. They could bring back John Klingberg.
That relationship is very sour.
That
relationship is very sour.
Oh yeah,
there's no way now.
Totally has.
And to Dylan's point, please free Gibby. I'm sorry, Gibson does not want to leave Anaheim. He doesn't, and he's said it on record that if Toronto trades for him, he doesn't want to fucking go. So I don't expect him to. I think he's going to be one of those guys that just goes off in the sunset as he got his money. He's happy where he is. Yeah, he's losing, but it doesn't matter.
So the cup isn't everything for John Gibson, apparently.
Hey, listen, if you're getting paid millions of dollars,
SoCal is hard to beat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it will be interesting. Dallas is someone I think needs to. I think they. Do you think they need to feel the need to do something? Like, yeah, they added Dadonov, but do they need to do anything else?
I mean, a little depth is never a bad thing, but I don't think they need to make major changes.
Yeah, like I don't think they need something maybe major, but I feel like Dadonov probably isn't enough considering how many moves everyone else has made. It feels like they are kind of being left in the dust as far as the arms race is concerned.
I don't think that you kind of go. I think you go in with what you have. Dallas is one of those ones where, you know, if they really are playing at the top of their game, they have a goaltender that would be able to get them to win the majority of their games. They just need to make sure that they are defensively sound, and I'd say if anything, they get a depth defenseman to kind of help them within this cup run. But once again, I don't think you trade your futures for this year, because I just don't think they're quite there yet. But they will be.
Maybe a TVR instead of a JVR, Trevor Van Riemsdyk.
I think that's a very good call, Sean.
You've also got Connor Sheary. Just looking at Washington with their UFAs, like, do they make moves with the remaining ones there? Because it looks like Washington and Brian McClellan are just looking at the UFAs and going, are you going to sign long term? If not, they're trading them. So Trevor Van Riemsdyk, Craig Smith, and Connor Sheary are the big ones.
Where's Trevor playing out of? Is that Chicago?
Sorry?
Where's Trevor playing? I can't remember.
He's out of Washington right now.
Oh, right. Okay.
He was with Chicago.
Yeah.
You're right, though.
He used to be.
He was. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. Anything else?
I do have one thing. This is the first time I've been on where I've had a chance to ask Sean what he thinks of a goalie goal. I know, Sean. You just, you have so much. It just got so much of a thrill out of seeing Linus Ullmark there. But when on Saturday, please give us your take on the goalie goal.
It was a good shot.
He's forcing it here so hard. He's forcing this so hard.
Yeah,
it's a kick in the nuts.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. Like, it's one of those things. Like, everyone's like, "Oh, hooray!" I'm like, I'm too emotional at that point to say that. I'm gonna just say fuck that. And honestly, I hate it. Is a kick. It is a kick in the nuts every time you give up a historic goal. Whether it's like the Canucks have been part of that a couple times with Gretzky. Whether or not it's an Ovechkin goal or that or an Ullmark goal or whatever, it just sucks because you're going to see it in replays for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, I like to separate the quality of the shot, but why was it such a good shot? Well, the Canucks gave them all freaking day to line that thing up too, so that didn't help. My dad, he had a chuckle out of it too, because John Garrett, the goalies could just see, they could see it lining up, right? And I think he made an uh-oh comment before it happened. And
you can just hear Cheech saying uh-oh too.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. It just it's I guess in a way really the cherry on top for how challenging this season's been for a Canuck fan, and of course it's already an experience with added anxiety when playing Boston, and the history and the emotions for the fans with that matchup, and them coming into Rogers Arena with certain particular players, Brad there still, and then for that to happen, I mean, it's like, of course. Because of course it did, but I just wanted. I know Sean had stronger feelings about this. That's why I wanted to bring that up.
Screw it! It sucks.
Yeah.
But does it suck as much as putting 50+ shots on Ullmark and still losing?
That was a hell of a game last night, wasn't it? I mean, unfortunately for Calgary, that on the wrong end of it, but
I think both would qualify as kicks in the nuts. It's just to what degree.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Flames can feel like they put a hell of a battle forward and picked up a point. I mean, I don't, but it's
how many fucking games do they outshoot the fucking other team, and they have, let's say, 8 shots go like halfway through the fucking second period. It's asinine. So I'm not taking that with any sort of validity whatsoever.
Well, hopefully that's the hopefully people are able to get into the dome and see it next time, because that was a absolute mess getting into the dome last night apparently. So
well, I'll be going tomorrow night.
Yeah,
nice.
I wonder why.
What was the reason for the drama for getting into the dome?
I think a little bit of construction and weather combined to just make an absolute mess, because they're still working on the new convention center, And yeah, it's just Calgary weather. We just got so much snow yesterday too.
That and yeah, with the BMO construction, that means the plus 15 from the C train over to the arena is no longer there. So it's definitely an interesting walk if you're taking it by train.
Yeah. All right, so I think we've covered everything up until now. Let's quickly check Twitter. Has Friedman tweeted? No, he is not. Okay, we're good.
We're good.
But Tyler, I do have one more question for you.
Oh yeah.
How was your beer league game last night?
Oh, well, it's one. It was at a 10:15 start, so it's made today very challenging. It's been a while since we had a 10:15 game. Really proud of our guys for a team win. We got off to a really sloppy start last night, and we're down 1-0 at the flood, and it's always cliche to say we just got to say that we just got to stick to our game, because they're just words, right? A lot of the time, but we did, and we managed to break through and then took advantage of some penalties from the other squad there, and then a really awesome. I describe it as like a 152-foot empty netter to seal it and pick up a 4-1 win. So our format, we have 8 teams in the playoffs. We get divided into 2 groups. So you got the 3-game round robin. The top 2 teams in each side advance to the semifinals, and we go from there. There's a best-of-3 final. So it's the first step in the journey. It's good. Proud of the boys. We got a big game on Sunday coming up against our biggest probably playoff rival over the years, the one that we have not been able to have an answer for about 6 or 7 years now. So we're looking forward to that opportunity again on Sunday.
You slay that dragon, Noble.
We got
Come on, Mitten. Let's
we
go.
got a cohesive group, and everybody's pulling the rope in the same direction, and we just hope to keep that rolling here.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I believe Devin and Kevin will be back on Friday to do a trade deadline episode. I'm not sure at what time yet.
I thought we already just did it, but sure. Yeah.
This is a pre-deadline. That is a post-deadline.
Yeah. I'll get Kev to tweet out the time for that because it's TBD.
All right. How do we follow everyone?
I'm on Twitter at tnoble, TNOBLE.
I'm at Schneids on most social media.
You can follow me on Twitter at Gordhouse09.
I am BeardyCanuck03 on Twitter, and you can follow us at Shifts and Pucks on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And we will talk to you next time. Bye for now.